We know that the Series S has outsold the Series X by a large margin. Do we? We know it's outsold
I don't
it
know.
for sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Large margin? I don't know.
It's outsold it by a margin.
Yeah.
Should we be looking at game releases with the Series S in mind first as the baseline experience? This isn't what Microsoft wanted, but it's what they got as a result of many factors. Would it have been better not to have released the Series S at all? John, what do you think about this? I think,
No.
from my perspective, the baseline is PlayStation 5, right? Simply by virtue of the fact that there's, in terms of, the high power consoles, they've got the market leadership there. There are more PlayStation 5s than there are Series S's in the hands of consumers.
Right.
Yeah, I think that does seem to be the basis for a lot of game development these days. But I think the Series S was a smart idea, I think, and they probably were right to do it. I think that it would have been a better but not affordable solution as if they had taken essentially the PS5 digital approach, where it's like still Series X capabilities, but in a smaller, I don't know, like a less expensive package somehow. But we talked to them, like the math didn't work, and there's a reason why the Series X was $499, right? And they wanted to get a lower price console, and they did beat the PS5 digital in price. And I think price is why it has outsold the digital, because the gap is large enough, and they supplied a lot of it, versus like the PS5 digital, where the only thing it has is that it's worse than the PS5. It's the same but no disk drive. So
Yeah,
That's an interesting point.
I feel like people just
That is
look
an
at that like,
interesting point.
well, I may as well just get the better one, and the difference is only $100, so why not? And Sony didn't seem to supply nearly as many of them, so it's an interesting gamble that they played with the Series S. It's hard to say what would have changed. I think they would have been in a worse position if they only launched with the Series X at $499. But what if they had launched the Series X at $399 and that was the only console?
right.
I think
And just eat it.
it could have
wow.
been different.
They would have lost
They would have lost. They would have lost a lot
so
of money.
much money.
Yeah, that's the thing. They would have lost too much money.
100 times. How many million?
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be quite remarkable. Do you think, from Microsoft's development perspective, that they need to target the Series S as the lead platform by virtue of the fact there's more of them out there?
I'd imagine it's not necessarily like the lead platform, but I think decisions are probably made technically that take the Series S into deep consideration, where they're not going to do anything that seems impossible for that hardware, I would imagine, at the upper level. Like, I can't see a situation where a first-party Xbox game would ship where you have like full ray tracing features on Series X, and then it's just like all rasterized on Series S, and it creates
Like
a
a
big
different
visual
game.
gap. I don't think they want to do that, and I don't think they will do it. So in
I don't
that
think
sense, there is
there's
a limitation in terms of what must be achieved, because you got to keep that S in mind. But I do think they're still willing to compromise in areas like texture resolution and such, because of the lower memory. I think we will see that, and it can just be argued that that's just part and parcel with the lower res overall target. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. They wanted a $299 box,
Yeah.
right? That's the bottom line, and therefore they had to make Series S. They couldn't do anything with Series X. I do find this question: would it have been better not to have released the Series S at all? I think if we go back to when they were designing the whole sort of layout of this particular generation, I do wonder if with the benefit of hindsight, whether they would have done anything different. What could they have done different? It kind of draws us back to that discussion about this change in strategy at the moment.
I feel like the only thing that the one thing I would have liked to have seen different is the memory situation. I don't know what the cost
More
would have been
memory?
like, but I feel like the 10 gigabyte memory thing has become a huge issue.
That's the interface as well.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of that's the main issue with Series S, from what I gather. And that if they had managed to improve that aspect, I'd be curious to know how much that would have added to the cost. It must have been enough for them to not do it. But I feel like their argument was that, it targets lower res, so we don't need as much memory. But that doesn't hold up that well.
It isn't all the memory, yeah.
Well, I don't think I mean, if it had been a 12 gig box versus a 16 gig Series X, then I think it would have been a lot different discussion that we're having here. The cutbacks wouldn't have been so severe, and the memory interface would have been wider. So you'd have more bandwidth and, more storage and memory there. So it's a tricky one. I mean, that was always the issue we've had with the Series S, not actually the teraflop count as such, but more, how are they going to get all of that data into, essentially 8 gigabytes of usable memory? It's gone up now a bit, I believe. Yeah. Any thoughts on this one, Alex?
No, I don't think it was a mistake. I think it's great. I think it's as sounds weird, but I think it's given developers the ability to realize they need to optimize certain things a bit more. I think a good example recently was Baldur's Gate 3. Realizing who knows how many load-bearing carrots they had, or whatever John called it back then.
Oh yeah,
in their game. Yeah, but those are great things. I also think about that the fact that the Series S runs Flight Simulator is really cool in a good way. So, I think it's given devs the opportunity to optimize games. We've seen less than successful conversions, to say the least. I think Oliver's been one to be looking at a couple of those occasionally. But the more successful ones are actually great to see.
Ultimately, the expectation level is different as well for that particular system. When people are buying it, the fact that they can play the games and stay in the game in an economical sense is probably more important to them than the quality of textures or missing ray tracing or something like that.